Angel Uriel. The name echoes through forgotten scrolls, whispered in apocryphal visions and buried beneath centuries of silence. Yet to those who dare to seek, his presence burns bright like a guardian flame hidden behind the veil. And in the midst of a world drowning in darkness, one man saw him, not in a dream, not in metaphor, but in revelation. His name was Enoch. Long before the flood, before Moses raised his staff, before Abraham walked the promised land, Enoch walked with God. And he did not see death. Why? What did he witness that was too sacred or too terrifying for the world to hold? This is not just the story of an ancient man taken up into the heavens. It is a warning, a prophecy, a secret handed down through ink, sealed in scrolls we were never supposed to read. And standing beside Enoch in his visions was Uriel, the archangel of light, the messenger of God's judgment, the keeper of divine fire. Together they walked through the chasms of eternity, heaven above, hell below, and saw the fate of both the righteous and the rebellious. Many have heard of angels like Gabriel or Michael, but few speak of Uriel, and fewer still understand his mission. He was not sent to comfort kings or deliver soft words. He was sent to warn, to show, to reveal the end from the beginning. In the Book of Enoch, once revered by early Christians, now hidden from most Bibles, we find visions of realms that defy time. We see burning skies, silent cities of light, and pits that echo with the cries of the damned. And through it all Enoch wrote with trembling hands, "For you, for now, for the last days." So why was this book buried? Why was Uriel's name struck from our memory? And what did Enoch really see that made him weep not for himself, but for the generations to come? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear may change how you see angels forever. The secrets hidden in the shadows are rising again, and they demand to be heard. This is the story of Angel Uriel and the real mission behind the Book of Enoch, one that speaks directly to the days we're living in now. Let us begin. Enoch was not a preacher. He wasn't a prophet in the way we think of Elijah, Isaiah, or even John the Baptist. He didn't wear garments of camel hair or thunder down judgment from mountaintops. He wasn't raised in palaces or trained in the courts of kings. No, Enoch was a quiet man, a man of the earth, a man of the hills and silence, who watched the stars and walked in the whispering winds. He herded flocks, tended fire, and sat alone beneath the night sky, not because he was seeking greatness, but because he was seeking God. While others built cities and bartered for gold, Enoch withdrew. He walked away from the noise of men and entered the stillness of wilderness, not to escape, but to listen. And it was there, in the forgotten places of the world, that the heavens opened. It was not a choir of angels that first came to him. It was a voice, gentle yet thunderous, saying simply, "You are mine, walk with me." And Enoch walked, day after day, year after year, not knowing where the path would lead, but knowing the one who led him. He followed the whisper of the divine across deserts and valleys, through famine and flood. He did not perform miracles or call down fire from heaven. He didn't need to. His obedience was his message. His life was the sermon. But the world was changing. The hearts of men were turning. They no longer looked to the skies for guidance, but dug into the earth for power. They built towers not to reach God, but to replace him. They twisted truth into chains and called it freedom. Even among the faithful, doubt crept in like vines across a broken wall. And it was then, in those twilight years of innocence, that the Lord showed Enoch visions, terrible, beautiful visions, not as punishment, but as preparation. The kind of revelations too vast for ordinary eyes to see, too holy for unrepentant ears to hear. And it was in these visions that Enoch saw the fate of mankind, and the face of an angel who had guarded the secrets of heaven since the beginning. His name was Uriel. Unlike Gabriel, who brings good news, or Michael, who wars with darkness, Uriel's task was different. He was the flame that illuminated the hidden, the keeper of God's mysteries. He did not announce. He did not fight. He revealed. When Uriel appeared, Enoch did not tremble in terror, but in awe. The angel's presence was not of this world. He shimmered like molten gold, yet his voice was like wind through shattered ruins. His face held no wrath, but it did not need to. For truth burns hotter than fire, and revelation shakes more than thunder. Uriel did not raise a sword, he raised a veil. And when he did, Enoch saw eternity split open. Uriel showed him the abyss, a place deeper than any pit, darker than any night. A realm where time collapsed, and the cries of lost souls spiraled like smoke. There, the wicked clawed at walls that could never break, condemned not just by their actions, but by their refusal to repent. And Uriel said, "These are the ones who mocked mercy, who trampled the covenant and silenced the voice of truth. Their names are no more." Yet Uriel also lifted Enoch's eyes to a city of radiant light. There the faithful hovered like stars, their garments shining brighter than the sun. These were the ones who had loved not the world, but the Word, who had been persecuted, rejected, and forgotten, yet held firm. And Uriel said, "They shall shine forever, for they were not ashamed of the truth." What Enoch saw through Uriel's guidance was not just judgment, but justice. Not only punishment, but promise. For every tear that had fallen in secret, God had seen. For every sacrifice made in silence, heaven had recorded. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was lost. Enoch wept, not because he feared the end, but because he saw how many would miss it. He knew that once the door of mercy was closed, no one could open it again. And so he took up his pen, not to preach, but to bear witness, not to declare his own thoughts, but to record the thoughts of God. The Book of Enoch was never meant to glorify a man. It was meant to warn generations, to prepare hearts for a time when truth would be traded for comfort, and righteousness for relevance. And Uriel, heaven's silent sentinel, stood at the center of it all, not shouting but showing, not condemning but unveiling. This is why Uriel is rarely mentioned in the canon, because Uriel doesn't soothe, he exposes. His light is not for decoration, it is for judgment and for direction. The church may have hidden his name, but they could not bury his message. And what is that message? That heaven watches, that justice is not delayed, it is patient, that one day every heart will stand before the light and be revealed for what it truly is. And those who walked humbly, who loved the truth, even when it cost them everything, they will rise, just as Enoch rose, just as the Word promised. So, if you've ever felt overlooked, if your obedience has felt invisible, remember Enoch. Remember that God does not call only the eloquent or the famous. Sometimes He calls the quiet ones, the ones who kneel in the dark and whisper His name when no one is listening, the ones who walk not for applause, but for truth. Because one day you may find yourself standing before the same angel. And when He lifts the veil, what will He reveal? Let us now follow Enoch and Uriel into the next revelation, into the place where heaven's fire meets earth's rebellion, the prison of the fallen, the cries of the damned, and the secret that was never meant to be forgotten. There was a time when the words of Enoch were treasured, copied carefully by hand, passed between faithful hearts like a hidden fire. The early church fathers read them. The Dead Sea Scrolls preserved them. And yet, somehow, the Book of Enoch vanished from our Bibles. Why? The truth is uncomfortable. Some messages are too dangerous for those in power. The Book of Enoch doesn't speak softly. It doesn't offer comfort to kings or flattery to priests. It tells of angels who fell, of watchers who corrupted mankind, of a world that traded light for shadows. And it warns, clearly and without apology, of a day when all will be judged, not by what they claimed to believe, but by how they lived. Enoch saw it coming. He saw a generation that would call evil good and good evil. He saw men twisting prophecy for profit, churches built on fame instead of faith, and truth buried beneath layers of tradition and fear. He wrote for that generation, ours, not with arrogance, but with urgency. In his scrolls he recorded signs, stars falling from heaven, beasts rising from the sea, rivers drying up, and men speaking lies in God's name. He warned of a time when people would have itching ears, eager to hear what pleases, not what is true. And then, silence. For centuries, his warnings were ignored. His book, labeled heresy. His visions dismissed as fantasy. But if we look around today, we see those signs echoing like distant thunder. Falling stars? We call them comets and meteors, but the heavens tremble more than we admit. Beasts from the sea. Genetic manipulations, AI entities, creatures we cannot name now walk our shores. Rivers drying up? From the Euphrates to the Colorado, ancient prophecies flow into modern headlines. And false teachers? They're no longer hidden. They're verified and followed by millions. We ignored Enoch. We buried his book, but his words never stopped being true. Uriel, the angel who stood beside him, knew this would happen. That's why he said, "Write it plainly. Let the humble understand. Let the proud be warned." Uriel wasn't just giving Enoch a private revelation. He was igniting a time bomb meant for us. And we are standing in the smoke. But not all was darkness in Enoch's vision. There was also a glimpse of light, and a terrifying view of what waits beneath it. Because there is a place Enoch saw, a place you and I were never meant to enter. It began with fire, not the kind that warms or dances, but a divine fire that devours without consuming. Enoch was taken, by Uriel, to a realm beyond realms, a chasm so deep it swallowed light, a silence so thick it screamed. There, Enoch saw the spirits of the rebellious, men and women once powerful, now clawing at walls of shadow. Their cries were not of rage, but of regret. Not of injustice, but of realization. They had chosen darkness, and now they were drowning in it. This place, the abyss, was not metaphor. It was not myth. It was real. And it wasn't Satan's playground. It was God's judgment. Uriel said, "These are they who perverted the truth, who mocked the prophets, who lived for themselves. Their names were blotted out, their legacy erased. And worst of all, they could see the light above, but never reach it." Enoch saw one spirit reach up, screaming for mercy, and he asked, "Can they escape?" Uriel's answer was solemn. Once the door is shut, none may open it. That single sentence shatters centuries of easy religion. It strips away the illusion that there will always be time, that forgiveness is forever on tap, that repentance is a choice we can make on our deathbeds. Uriel makes it clear, judgment is real, and so is finality. This chasm, this place of burning light and bottomless sorrow, is not hell as Dante imagined it. There are no pitchforks, no red devils, only truth and the unbearable reality of being separated from the one who made you. And yet, even here, we find a lesson. Enoch did not weep for the damned in contempt. He wept because he knew it didn't have to be this way. These were not random souls. They were once children, dreamers, mothers and fathers, leaders and lovers. But somewhere along the road they stopped listening. They chose the roar of the world over the whisper of God. And isn't that what we're tempted to do every day? Ignore the still small voice. Silence the conviction. Delay the decision. But Uriel's fire doesn't wait for our schedule. Judgment doesn't ask for permission. The gate is open now, but not forever. So what do we do with this? We remember Enoch, the quiet man who wrote not for his fame, but for our salvation. The man who looked into eternity and came back trembling. The man who saw the screaming flames and picked up his pen anyway. We remember Uriel. The angel who doesn't flatter, who doesn't wink at sin, but who stands like a blazing sword between truth and deception. And we remember this: there is still time, not much. But enough. Enough to open the book we once buried. Enough to listen to a warning we once dismissed. Enough to walk the way of Enoch, even if it means walking alone. Because there's another side to the chasm, a place of thrones and light, of garments shining like the stars. A place Enoch saw too, a place we'll visit soon. But first, we must understand what lies below, so we can truly long for what waits above. Enoch's visions did not end in darkness. No, after the chasm, after the flames and the screaming abyss, Uriel turned Enoch's eyes upward. And what he saw, it made him weep again, not from sorrow this time, but from awe. Above the pit, beyond the smouldering clouds, there was a great stillness. And in that stillness he saw them, the righteous. They did not rise with trumpets or thunder. They floated gently, as if lifted by invisible hands. Their robes were white, shining with a brilliance not of this world. Their faces were peaceful, untroubled by the horrors beneath. They did not scream. They did not look back. They were homeward bound. Enoch asked, "Who are these?" And Uriel replied, They are the ones who loved not the world, but the Word, who suffered for truth and were forsaken, yet they remained faithful. Now they are exalted. This was not just reward, it was restoration. These were the ones the world mocked, ignored, or persecuted. They were told their sacrifices were foolish, that their devotion was outdated, that their prayers were in vain. But in this vision, they were the shining ones, and their joy knew no end. And then Enoch saw the most devastating contrast. From the pit, the wicked looked up, and they saw. They saw the light, the robes, the faces they once knew, neighbors, teachers, family members, even strangers whose words of truth they had scorned. They saw them ascending, rising into glory, while they remained in ruin. They could no longer mock, no longer argue, no longer delay. All they could do was watch. That, perhaps, is the greatest torment of all, not just the pain of judgment, but the clarity of lost opportunity, the knowing that you had the chance. That truth was offered, and you said no. Uriel said, "To the faithful, faithfulness, to the righteous, reward, and to the wicked, sorrow without limit." There is no bitterness in those words, only justice. There is no vengeance, only fulfillment. This is not punishment for punishment's sake. It is a reckoning. The righteous are lifted, not to gloat, but because the weight of glory could no longer be withheld. What a scene! What a hope! And what a warning! But even among the soaring visions of eternity, Enoch was shown something else, something much smaller, much quieter. A story that takes place not in the heavens or the abyss, but here, on earth, in the shadows, in the silence, in the heart of a woman named Leora. She was not a prophet, not a priestess, not a warrior. She was a daughter, a wife, a mother, born near the Dead Sea in a time when the name of Enoch was banned. The scrolls were rare, the truth had been outlawed, and yet Leora believed. Her father had been a scribe, her mother a healer. They told her the old stories by candlelight. But when soldiers came to burn the town because they refused to bow to a false god, Leora fled into the hills. All she had was a single scrap of parchment, words from Enoch, smudged and weathered, clutched in her hands like a flame in the storm. She read it beneath starless skies. She whispered it to herself as thunder rolled through the mountains. And in those words, she found something stronger than fear, hope. There is a day coming, she would say, when the wicked will be judged and the righteous shall shine. Leora never held a sword. She never stood on a stage. But her courage outshone the mightiest generals. She carried the message, not with power, but with purity. She taught it to her children. She lived it in the wilderness. She stood firm when the world tried to crush her. And the fire she carried, it spread. Because truth, when hidden in the heart of the faithful, cannot die. This is the other side of Enoch's vision. Not the grand revelations of heaven and hell, but the quiet resistance of the faithful on earth. People like Leora, people who are nameless to the world but known to God. People who carry the word not in temples, but in torn pages, whispered prayers and steadfast lives. In Leora, we see what it means to endure. In her, we see the living legacy of Enoch's scrolls. a lineage not marked by bloodlines but by faith lines, those who refuse to forget when the world forgets everything holy. You see, God does not measure greatness the way we do. He does not count views, likes, or fame. He counts faithfulness. He weighs the hidden offerings. He remembers the single mother who taught her children to pray, the old man who kneels when no one's watching, the teenager who says no to the crowd because yes to God is worth more. And so the message spreads. Through caves and caves of the soul, through mothers and grandfathers, through scrolls and fragments, until at last it reaches you. You who are watching this now, you who may feel too small to make a difference, too late, too forgotten. Hear this. Leora was never mentioned in the canon, but heaven knows her name. So carry the fire. Speak the word. Stand in the shadows if you must, but never let the light go out, because just like Enoch, just like Leora, you were born for a time such as this. And now we must turn to the final signs, the end-time markers Enoch and Uriel left behind, warnings etched in fire, waiting for those with eyes to see. Stay close. What comes next will shake everything. The visions Enoch received were not only about heaven and hell. They were not merely glimpses into the afterlife. They were blueprints, prophetic timelines, warning signs etched into eternity, whispered by the angel Uriel to a man who walked with God. These were not vague riddles or poetic metaphors. They were specific, measurable, tangible, and they were meant for us. Uriel spoke of the last days, a time when the earth would groan, the heavens would tremble, and mankind would forget the very covenant that bound them to the Creator. Enoch, with trembling hands, recorded each one, not to inspire fear, but to awaken discernment, not to frighten, but to prepare. The first sign, falling stars. To ancient eyes, this would have looked like chaos in the sky. Today we call them meteor showers or cosmic anomalies. But in recent years, we've seen a rise in unexplained celestial phenomena, lights darting across the heavens, fireballs splitting the sky. In Revelation, stars falling often represent fallen angels. Could it be that both are true? That these signs in the skies reflect a shaking in the spiritual realm? The second sign, rivers drying up. In the Book of Revelation, we're told the Euphrates will dry to prepare the way for the kings of the East. And now, in our time, we see it happening, literally. Images from satellites show the once mighty river shrinking, splitting into cracks. Ancient riverbeds are exposed. Secrets once hidden beneath the waters are now visible. Tombs, temples. Foundations of forgotten empires. Enoch saw it before we had satellites to prove it. The third sign, beasts rising from the sea. To a modern audience, this might sound like fantasy, but look deeper. What are we creating in our laboratories? Genetic hybrids. Unnatural life. Artificial intelligence with access to oceans of data, but no soul. Creatures with minds, but no morality. We are birthing things that never should have been born. And Enoch saw them coming. The fourth sign, men speaking lies in the name of God. This one stings, because it's not about outsiders or enemies, it's about leaders, about pastors, prophets, teachers who twist the word to fit the world. They preach comfort without conviction, love without truth, grace without holiness. And the people love it so. Uriel warned, they will heap up teachers to tickle their ears, but not their hearts. The fifth sign, persecution of the righteous, not through fire and sword like before, but through shame and silence. The faithful will be mocked as fools, branded as hateful, cancelled, silenced. But they will remain. In caves, in corners, in the quiet, but they will remain. Just like Leora, just like Enoch. And perhaps the most dangerous sign of all, forgetfulness. The world will not rage against God. It will simply forget him. Slowly, subtly, one generation at a time. Prayers replaced by posts. Worship replaced by entertainment. Conviction replaced by convenience. We will drift, not fall. And that is why the signs are given, to wake us before we drift too far. These are not just echoes from the past. They are headlines today. So, what do we do with this? We watch, we pray. But more than that, we remember. We remember the law. We remember the promises. We remember that God is not slow in keeping his word. He is patient, not wanting anyone to perish. And we speak. Even if the world mocks us. Even if we're misunderstood. Even if no one listens. Yet. Enoch didn't wait for applause. He wrote because he had to. Because heaven had spoken, and silence was no longer an option. Uriel didn't reveal for fame. He revealed because the time was short. And now, dear friend, it is our turn. The scroll may have faded. The parchments may have crumbled, but the message is alive. It lives in your hands, in your heart, in the choice you make today. Will you see the signs and walk away? Or will you rise like Enoch and write your own chapter in the book of the faithful? The final call is coming. The heavens are stirring. And the door, once wide open, is beginning to close. But for those who remember, who keep the flame alive, who look not to the world, but to the Word, there is still time. And what waits beyond that time is glory. Unshakable, eternal. Now stay with me, because in the final moments of this journey, we will uncover the last and most urgent message Enoch ever recorded. A message for this generation, and perhaps for you. They say the sky has always spoken, but only the few ever listened. Enoch was one of them. Not because he had power, not because he stood behind altars or ruled over crowds, but because he chose silence over noise, obedience over applause, faith over comfort. In a world bent on forgetting God, he remembered. In a world that traded holiness for hunger, he walked with heaven. And now his voice, once buried beneath ash and time, has risen again, through the words he wrote in trembling ink, through the visions shown by the angel Uriel, heaven's guardian of secrets, through a book forgotten by the world, yet remembered by the stars. The Book of Enoch was never meant to be entertainment. It was a final flare shot across eternity. A message for the last generation, a warning etched in holy fire, and perhaps a message for you. You see, the real question isn't whether Enoch's visions were true. The real question is, what if they are unfolding right now? What if the stars are already falling? What if the gates of mercy are closing? What if the screams from the abyss that Enoch heard aren't echoes from the past, but whispers from our future? This isn't just prophecy. It's personal. Because maybe you've felt it too. The tension in the world, the heaviness in the air, the way things move faster but feel emptier. The way truth feels like a whisper in a world that shouts lies. Maybe you've noticed the rivers drying up, not just in the land, but in the soul. Maybe you've watched the lights flicker, not just in the sky, but in people's eyes. If that's you, you're not alone. Enoch saw it coming. Uriel knew it would return. And now, it's your moment to decide. Will you sleep through the warnings or rise? Because somewhere right now, a young woman like Leora is lighting a candle in a cave, reading ancient words by trembling flame. Somewhere, a father like Methuselah is writing down the signs, hoping his children won't forget. Somewhere, a voice like Uriel's still burns in the wind, still calls to the faithful, still waits for someone to listen. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be a prophet. You just need to be willing to remember, willing to stand. Willing to walk with God, even when the world walks the other way. The Book of Enoch isn't finished. The pages may be old, but the story is still being written. And you, yes you, may be part of its final chapter. So let me ask you this. Will you be among those who shine like the stars forever? Or will you be the one who watched but waited too long? If this message stirred something in you, share it. Don't let the fire stay buried. Don't let these words vanish like so many others before them. There's someone else out there who needs to hear this, just like you did. And if you haven't yet, hit that like button, not just for us, but to help this truth reach more eyes, more hearts, more souls. Subscribe, not for content, but for a journey. A journey into the hidden places of the Bible, the forbidden truths, the voices of angels, the mysteries of God. Each week, we dive deeper into the scriptures that shake the foundations, into stories the world forgot, but heaven never did. So stay close. Stay watching, because the war between darkness and light isn't just in the heavens, it's here, it's now. And those who carry the flame of Enoch are rising again. We are not finished, not by a long shot. In fact, we're just beginning. Thank you for walking this road with us. Thank you for daring to ask what others fear to speak. And may the God who walked with Enoch speak to your heart in the stillness of tonight. Until next time, keep your lamp burning, because the secrets are only just beginning to be revealed.